For my 70th milestone, my estranged son had a crate of gourmet truffles delivered to my porch. When he phoned the next morning to ask if I'd tasted them, I casually mentioned, I passed them on to Alina and the grandkids. They adore sugar. The line went dead silent. Then a scream tore through the receiver. You did what? His sheer panic wasn't about a rejected gift. It was the sound of a murder plot failing, and my generosity had accidentally saved my life while placing my innocent grandchildren in the path of a lethal weapon. But I had no idea just how dark this betrayal truly went. My name is Arthur Sterling, and at 70 years old, I learned that 4 decades of devotion had produced a predator who wanted me buried. If this narrative shakes you to the core, please leave a comment telling us where you're viewing from, and if you've ever faced a family deception like this. Let me take you back to where it started. A calm Tuesday in the Rolling Hills district when life still made sense. I had just finished my second mug of dark roast when the doorbell chimed. Visitors were rare for a retiree on a weekday. The courier presented a sleek package wrapped in metallic gold with crimson bow. Inside rested the most exquisite confectionaries I had ever beheld. They resembled miniature sculptures, some dusted with edible silver, others molded into delicate blossom. The note attached made my pulse race. To the greatest father ever, love Julian. I had to take a seat. When was the last time my boy showed such kindness? It had been seasons since he displayed any warmth. Ever since he married Alina 5 years back, our bond had become as frosty as a December dawn. These sweets were far too opulent for a simple man like me. I typically bought my candy bars from the corner convenience store. These belonged in a high-end boutique where the prices rivaled my utility bill. Too fine for just myself, I muttered to the quiet room. Alina and the little ones would cherish them more. My grandkids, Sophie and Luca, were 8 and 6, possessing appetites that could clear out a bakery. They would beam like it was Christmas morning upon seeing these treats. Perhaps sharing Julian's present with his own household would help mend the rift between us. I resealed the carton and steered my vintage truck through the canopy of ease toward Julian's gated community. Every yard was manicured to perfection. My son had succeeded. A wealth manager, a stunning estate, a picture-perfect clan. Everything I had hoped for when I worked double shifts to fund his tuition. Standing on his doorstep, I felt the jitters of a schoolboy. When had I last arrived without an appointment? When was the last time I was greeted with genuine rather than stiff tolerance? The entry swung open, revealing Alina, her hair tied back, dressed in premium athletic wear. A striking woman, yet she had never quite warmed to me. Always civil, never truly inviting. Arthur, she stated, and a shadow passed over her expression as she noticed the gift. What are you doing here? Julian sent these truffles for my birthday, I clarified, extending the packet. Way too fancy for an old guy. Figured the children might like them better. I observed her gaze as she accepted the box. For a fleeting second, something odd danced in her eye. Astonishment blended with what almost resembled dread. I should have asked why she looked so unsettled. The following day began like any standard Wednesday in my silent Rolling Hills residence. I was nursing my initial coffee, catching the weather report, when the landline trilled exactly at 8:50. The screen displayed Julian's contact info, and my spirits soared. 2 consecutive days of contact. Perhaps those truffles really were a peace offering. Good morning, son, I greeted brightly, but the tone that replied was taut, stressed. Nothing like the casual vibe I expected. Dad, regarding the box I shipped yesterday. Oh, they were magnificent, Julian. Truly generous of you. Did you consume any? His words were hurried, frantic. I laughed softly. Well, no, actually. You know your father. I took one glance at those artisan bites and decided they were too grand for me. Dropped them right off to Alina and the little ones. The quiet that ensued wasn't the natural lull of a chat. It hung heavy and oppressive, like the atmosphere before a storm breaks. I could hear his respiration on the line, rapid and shallow. Dad, he finally choked out, his volume barely a murmur. What precisely did you do with them? I gifted them to Alina and the grandkids. As I said, they love sugar and those looked pricey. Thought they'd value them more than. You gave them all to Alina and the kids. The terror in his pitch made my chest constrict. Well, yes, the entire container. Is there an issue? That's when he shrieked. Not a raised voice, not a shout, but a scream like a man watching his reality disintegrate. You did what? You did what? I pulled the receiver away, my fingers trembling. In 42 years of fatherhood, I'd never heard Julian sound like that. Absolute horror mixed with fury, desperation clawing at every syllable. Son, I don't get it. What's the matter? They were your present to me, right? Did you eat any? Even a single one, even a crumb, his queries fired like automatic rounds. Are you 100% sure you didn't taste one? Julian, you're frightening. Of course I'm sure. I didn't even unseal the inner wrap, just drove it straight to your place. Oh God, Dad, you have no clue what you've done. The connection cut. I sat there gazing at the handset in my calloused palm. My coffee turned tepid on the counter. Beyond the glass, the morning light still danced on the water, birds still chirped in the elm, but something foundational had fractured in my universe. Throughout all my time as a parent, through adolescent rebellion, university pressure, job losses, I had never heard my boy sound truly petrified. Irritated, sure. Annoyed, definitely, but never this. Never like a strategist, watching his blueprint turn to ash. My fatherly intuition, sharpened by years of midnight furs and playground falls, screamed that something was catastrophically wrong. The way he interrogated me about eating the sweets, the specific demand to know if I'd tasted even one, the utter hysteria when I confirmed regifting. Those weren't the inquiries of a saddened gift giver. Those were the demands of someone who needed to track the location of every morsel. I placed the phone down with shaking hands and looked out at the tranquil morning, knowing with gut-wrenching certainty that my quiet retirement was about to implode. The afternoon crawled by with that conversation looping in my mind. I couldn't shake Julian's fearful tone. I couldn't stop replaying those manic questions. By 4:00 p.m., I was pacing my den like a trapped beast. When the phone rang again, I nearly leaped out of my skin. Arthur, Alina's voice was trembling, pitched high with fright. The kids are ill. We're at Central Memorial. You need to get here. My blood ran cold. What happened? They started retching an hour ago. Awful cramps. The staff is running panels, but her voice cracked. Arthur, I suspect it's the candy. I was in my vehicle before she finished speaking. My hands quaked as I ignited the engine. The 15-minute route to the hospital felt like days. Every stoplight was an eternity. My brain cycled through horrific scenarios. Julian's panicked scream blending with visions of my grandchildren in agony. Central Memorial's ER hummed usual frantic energy, but I located Alina instantly. She was slumped in a hard chair, her athletic gear creased, her usually immaculate hair obscuring her face. When she glanced up, her eyes were swollen and haunted. Where are they? I demanded, rushing to her. Room 3, they won't let me back yet. She clutched my forearm with desperate strength. Arthur, they ate the chocolates after breakfast. Sophie had 3. Lucas had 2. Within 60 minutes, they were both violently ill. I collapsed into the seat beside her, my legs suddenly failing. How bad? Vomiting, intense stomach spasms, trouble breathing. Each symptom dropped from her mouth like a verdict. The physicians asked about their intake. When I brought up the truffle, she shivered. They immediately ordered toxicology screen. We sat in a wretched silence, watching scrubs blur past, listening to the rhythmic beeping and distant wail. Every second dragged. Eventually, a young resident approached, his face severe. Mrs. Sterling, I'm Dr. Patel. We have the lab work. Alina rose on unsteady limbs. Will they make it? They are stable for now, but I must inquire about those sweets. Our analysis indicates clear traces of arsenic poison. The word struck me like a physical punch. Arsenic, toxin in the chocolates my son mailed for my birthday. Arsenic, I whispered, barely audible. Dr. Patel nodded grimly. A lethal dose. If they had ingested more or were smaller, he didn't need to the thought. I felt the floor tilt. The hallway seemed to elongate and twist. My own child had shipped me poisoned confectionery, not as a token of love, but as an instrument of death. Those sweets weren't meant to be shared, were they, Arthur? Her tone was hushed but steady now. They were intended for exclusively you. I couldn't reply. The reality was a suffocating weight, stealing my speech, my optimism, my belief in the boy I'd reared. My son, my own DNA, had attempted to execute. The realization didn't arrive as a jolt. It arrived as a slow, horrifying sunrise over a wasteland. Every bizarre interaction from the last 48 hours suddenly made perfect, terrible sense. Alina reached out and grasped my rough hand. For the first time in 5 years, there was no chill in her grip, no formal barrier. We were fused now by the hideous fact we both comprehended. We were both casualties of the man we had trusted implicitly. 3 nights of insomnia gave me time to digest the impossible. My son was a would-be patricide. Now I needed to hear it from him. I knew where to locate him. Whenever Julian faced failing marks, youthful blunders, he ran to Aunt Sarah's place. My younger sister had been his sanctuary for 4 decades. The recorder felt dense in my coat pocket as I steered toward Sarah's modest bungalow in the suburbs. I knocked thrice, hard. Guilt was etched all over my sister's features before she uttered a word. Arthur, I wasn't looking for you. I bet you weren't. I spotted Julian's silhouette behind her. We need to speak, Sarah, all of us. Julian emerged looking 5 years older every day. Messy hair, rumpled attire, but his face held no contrition, just the calculating gaze of a trapped fox. Hello, Dad. Still trying to manage the narrative. I stepped past him without being asked. Why did you try to poison me, son? I don't know what you mean. The falsehood slid out smoothly. Those were a birthday present. Arsenic doesn't accidentally manifest in gourmet truffle. Arthur, his mask slipped for a second. You have no proof. The forensic lab has plenty. Alina gave her statement. The medical team logged everything. Your own offspring nearly died because of your toxic gift. That's when he fractured. The charade dissolved, exposing something glacial beneath. You're a liability, he said, voice monotone. You've always been a liability. I need that $850,000 now, not when you're 90. The sentences landed like blows, but I kept the tape running. I have massive debts, Dad. I need that inheritance immediately. He started pacing. You're ancient. What else are you going to do? Sit around waiting to expire? Sarah gasped from the archway. Julian, stop. You can't mean that. He spun on her violently. Stay out of this, Aunt Sarah. You don't get the pressure I'm under. But I understood perfectly. This wasn't my boy speaking. This was a stranger wearing his skin, a scavenger who had calculated my value in cents. 42 years, I said softly. I raised you, cherished you, sacrificed for you. You chose to have me, he fired back. I never requested your sacrifices. I never asked for your affection, and I'm done pretending to be thankful for a life I never desired. The room went still, save for Sarah's quiet weep. I looked at this man and felt something perish in my chest. Not love for the child he was, but hope for the man he had become. You're right about one thing, I said, rising to exit. My son died a long time ago. You're just a ghost wearing his face. As I walked to the threshold, I heard him calling frantically, but I didn't look back. There was nothing left to say to the monster I had unknowingly nurtured. I drove away in a daze, the device in my pocket heavy with the sound of betrayal. That evening I didn't try to sleep. I sat in my kitchen until dawn, replaying Julian's words. You're a liability. But somewhere between midnight and sunrise, something shifted. The crushing weight of treachery hardened into resolve. For 70 years, I'd been Arthur Sterling, the accommodating dad, the giving provider. That man had nearly been erased by his own offspring. At 7:00 a.m., I made the first call of my new existence. Thompson, it's Arthur. I need a meeting today. Urgent. Lawyer Thompson had managed my modest affairs for 2 decades. 2 hours later, I sat in his city office, watching his expression morph as he listened to the confession. Good Lord, Arthur. Thompson took off his spectacles with trembling fingers. This is attempted homicide, 1st degree, premeditated. I know what it is. My voice sounded distinct, firmer. What I need to know is our next move. Thompson leaned back, his legal brain engaging. Criminal prosecution. Obviously, the DA will want this audio, the medical data. But Arthur, this will be savage. Press coverage, public judgment. Good. I want the world to know what he is. We spent an hour plotting the offensive. Criminal charges, civil lawsuit for emotional trauma, asset freezing to ensure Julian couldn't touch a dime. There's one more thing, Thompson said, checking his mobile. We need a full picture of Julian's life. His ledgers, his secrets. I know a guy. Investigator Cole walked in shortly after, a compact man with sharp eyes. Former detective, now private sector. Mr. Sterling, Cole said, gripping my hand. Thompson briefed me. I'm sorry, but we'll get the fact. I handed him a retainer check instantly. Julian mentioned financial disaster. I need to know the specifics. Consider it done. Cole pocketed the check. Give me 7 days. Bank logs, credit scores, associates. If he's hiding it, I'll find it. After they departed, I stood alone watching the skyline. For the first time in days, I could inhale fully. On the ride back, I paused at a clothier. The clerk looked stunned when I requested a total wardrobe overhaul. Special event, sir. You could say that. I picked new suits, garments that fit, shoes that didn't belong to a beaten senior. I was retiring from being a victim. That night I phoned Alina. Her voice was shaky but more robust than at the clinic. Arthur, how are the kids? Recovering, still frightened but healing. What are we doing about Julian? We're going to ensure he answers for this. Silence, then a sigh of relief. Thank you, I wasn't sure if, since he's your son. Nowhere, I said, catching my reflection. New attire, upright posture, eyes steelier than before. My son is gone. What we're dealing with is something else. For the first time in 70 years, I felt genuinely formidable. A week later, Investigator Cole called with findings that surpassed my nightmare. Arthur, take a seat. His tone was grave. Come to my office. There's a lot to review. An hour later, I sat opposite Cole as he splayed photos and papers like a dealer spreading cards. The first image churned my stomach. Julian at a card table, chips towering, face flushed with the reckless arrogance of an addict. Atlantic City, Vegas. Illegal basements right here in town, Cole detailed, sliding more pictures. Your boy has a massive compulsion and it's cost him everything. The next stack was worse. Bank drafts, loans, credit hits, a portrait of financial ruin. $120,000, Cole stated softly. That's what he owes to very scary individuals. Loan sharks who don't take "I can't pay" as a valid response. I stared at the figures. How long? 2 years minimum. But here's the ugly part. Cole opened another file. He's been pilfering from his family to feed the beast. The papers revealed mortgage documents I'd never seen. He took a second lien on the house 6 months back. Alina's signature is fake. Lab confirmed it. My chest tightened. She doesn't know. It gets darker. Look at the college funds for Sophie and Luca. Both accounts read zero. He drained their education savings 90 days ago. Claimed he was moving them to high-yield bonds. I felt nauseous. My grandkids' future stolen to settle gambling tab. Arthur, your daughter-in-law, is oblivious. She thinks they're just tight on cash. She has no clue about the lien, the tables, or the sharks calling the landline. That afternoon, I met Alina at her favorite bistro, a spot Julian would never check. She arrived looking weary but put together, confused by the invite. Arthur, is everything all right? I slid the dossier across the white cloth. I need you to review these, Alina. Brace yourself. She opened the folder cautiously. Her face drained of color as she absorbed the first photo. Julian at a poker table, surrounded by smoke and criminals, betting money that didn't exist. What is this? She whispered. The reality of your husband's double life. I watched her transform with each page. Confusion to shock. Shock to horror. Horror to a cold, protective fury. $120,000. Her voice was faint. He mortgaged our home. He stole the tuition. I'm sorry, Alina. I know this is shattering. She closed the file with trembling hands, then looked at me with eyes that held a new clarity. The chocolates weren't random. He needed your estate to pay the sharks. Exactly. We sat in silence as she processed the magnitude of the betrayal. When she spoke, her voice was steep. What do you need? Testimony, help making him pay. Yes, whatever it takes to shield the children. In that moment, looking at my former adversary, I realized we had become allies in a war against the man who had deceived us both. 6 months later, I ascended the courthouse steps. A different man than the one who received that cursed gift. News vans lined the pavement. Son attempts to poison father for cash made for gripping headline. I wore my navy suit with a confidence I'd never possessed. Beside me, Alina looked sharp, a woman who had located her spine. Mr. Sterling, a reporter shouted. Thoughts on seeing your son? I feel like justice is arriving, I replied. Inside, Julian looked diminished. His lawyer shuffled papers with feet. The district attorney opened with lethal precision. She played my recording. Julian's cold voice filled the room. You're a liability. I need the money now. The jurors, 12 strangers, struggled to comprehend such casual malice. When I took the stand, I didn't falter. I recounted the gift, the call, the hospital run. Mr. Sterling, how did you feel realizing your son tried to kill you? I looked at the jury, heartbroken but not shocked. The man who sent those truffles wasn't the boy I raised. That boy is dead. Alina's testimony was the nail in the coffin. She described the financial abuse, the forged signature, the stolen fund. Why are you testifying, Mrs. Sterling? Because my kids deserve better than a father who would poison their grandfather and rob their future. The verdict came after 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentenced to 12 years. No parole for 8. As they led Julian away, he glanced at me. I saw no remorse, just the sullen resentment of a caught thief. Outside, the press swarmed. How do you feel? Peaceful, I said. Justice isn't revenge, it's accountability. 5 years later, I stood in the conference hall of the Arthur Sterling Foundation. We had assisted over 300 seniors facing family abuse. What started as my personal crusade had become a shield for others. Alina was family now, closer than Julian ever was. Sophie and Lucas filled my home with laughter but I had one loose end to tie. The drive to the prison took 2 hours. After 5 years of radio silence, I was ready. The visiting room was sterile. When Julian entered in his whites, he looked aged. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a deep weariness. "Dad," he said, sitting down, "I didn't think you'd show." "Neither did I. I've been in therapy," he said, his voice softer. "Gambling, addiction, narcissism. I'm starting to see what I was." I studied him. The smooth talker was absent. "I'm glad you're getting help," I said. "I know you can't forgive me, but I need you to know I understand now. The gambling, it was about control, taking what I thought I was owed." I leaned back. "Julian, listen to me. I still love you. I'll always love the child I raised, but I love myself now too, and that means I can't go back." His eyes watered, genuine tears this time. "I understand, do you? Because love doesn't mean accepting abuse. It doesn't mean sacrificing my safety or destructive choices. I spent 40 years confusing unconditional love with unconditional tolerance." "You're right," he whispered. I reached across and tapped his hand. "When you get out, if you're still this man, maybe we can build something new. Not as father and son like before, but as two men who know what respect looks like." Driving home through the Texas dusk, I felt a strange emotion, hope. I poured a drink on my deck, watching the lake shimmer. I thought about the poison that should have killed me. Instead, it woke me up. It taught me that the greatest gift you can give is loving someone enough to set boundaries, enough to say no, enough to let them face the consequences. Don't be like me. Don't wait until someone tries to end you to find your worth. Don't confuse kindness with weakness. I gave everything and nearly lost my life. Real love doesn't demand your dignity. It doesn't threaten you. It doesn't poison you. This story changed my life at 70. Don't wait that long. If this story resonated, hit that like button and subscribe to Winds of Thought for more lessons on life and relationships. What's your experience with family boundary? Tell me in the comments. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is protect yourself.